ESPN has been humiliated again this week by another one of their so-called stars. First, it was pretend NBA analyst Shanae Aguumike claiming that the make-believe basketball career of A.J. Wilson in the WNBA is comparable to Tom Brady. For starters, it is an absolute insult to compare a pretend basketball player to a real athlete. It would be insulting to compare A.J. Wilson to Bronny James. But to compare a make-believe basketball player to the greatest quarterback in the history of the National Football League, and not only that, to insinuate that her career supersedes the legendary career of Tom Brady? I don't usually call for people to get fired, and I don't want Shanae Aguumike to lose her job at ESPN, but that comparison is grounds for termination. Then you had Stephen A. Smith damn near having a meltdown because the Lakers seem to be building an all-white team in Los Angeles. This is outrageous! How in the hell can you build an NBA team and not include the brothers? This is the National Brothers Association. Ain't no white man supposed to be in the NBA. And now, you've got some dude who appears to be the younger version of Mr. Magoo begging for charity and refusing to pay the winners of his fantasy football leagues. Headline at Front Office Sports: ESPN's Matt Miller crash backlash in Missouri investigation. I'm sure most of you guys are asking the same thing that I did. Who in the hell is Matt Miller? Initially, I thought this report was about the former general manager of the Detroit Lions back in the 2000s, but that was Matt Millen. Matt Miller is an NFL draft analyst at ESPN. I guess he is one of the subordinates to Captain Doofus Mel Kiper. You know, you gotta give credit to Melvin. This dude is like a weatherman. Somehow, Melvin Kiper has convinced ESPN to pay him millions and millions of dollars over the span of about 40 years. And all he really does is guess where players are going to be drafted, and often guessing wrong. Last week, Matt Miller announced on social media that he was recovering from a life-threatening car accident. A couple of weeks ago, he was driving down the highway in the middle of nowhere in Missouri. He crossed into the other lane accidentally, ended up crashing into an 18-wheeler. Luckily, the driver of the 18-wheeler, he was unharmed. But Matt Miller, he was seriously injured, had broken ribs. Doctors had to amputate one of his arms just to save his life. To my knowledge, alcohol was not involved. This was just an accident, which is a silver lining for Matt Miller because, as is often the case, alcohol only makes things worse, and right now, life is falling apart for Matt Miller. You know, when you're living wrong, when you're scheming, when you're taking advantage of other people, when you're not living a clean life, all it takes is one incident. All it takes is one mistake, one slip up to be exposed. You can get away with living wrong for a little while, but eventually the truth always comes to the light. For me in 2006, after many, many years of living way too fast, it was a DUI and a weed charge, all because my friend who was supposed to be driving that night fell down in the parking lot as we were walking towards my car. Obviously, I wasn't about to let him drive me. We made it about a mile down one of the busiest streets in the city, got pulled over, and I forgot I had remnants fragments of a blunt in my ashtray. Ironically enough, 9 years later, I drove my 4Runner directly into a light pole downtown, resulting in another DUI and another reminder to slow down or grow up. Matt Miller is lucky to be alive, and I'm sure he has everyone's sympathy. But the thing about sympathy, it's temporary. And for Matt Miller, all it took was a week for the sympathy he was given to expire. After his car accident, his sister-in-law launched a campaign on GoFundMe. In less than a week, generous people who felt sorry for Matt Miller and wanted to help, including Pat McAfee, Adam Schefter, and his mentor Mel Kiper and his colleagues, they donated over $51,000 to Matt Miller. Look, I don't have anything against GoFundMe. I don't have anything against people who need help asking for help. If you're a single mom or a single dad, your family dog has been diagnosed with cancer and you need $10,000 for treatment, I'm happy to donate, happy to help out. I know what it's like to watch your dog fight cancer. The last thing you want to worry about in that situation is money or not having money. However, if you have resources, if you're working at ESPN, or maybe you're a YouTuber with a sizable audience doing well for yourself, I am automatically going to be skeptical of you asking for charity. I don't know how much money Matt Miller is making at ESPN. According to the big lead, his mentor Melvin has a net worth of $7 million. Now, obviously, Matt Miller is nowhere near that amount, but I would assume most analysts, I would assume most television personalities at ESPN are at minimum making six figures. I would also assume that ESPN is providing health insurance. If Matt Miller is an independent contractor, I assume ESPN is paying him enough to afford health insurance. Either way, I'm struggling to understand why Matt Miller would be asking for charity. Me personally, I could not imagine being in a comfortable financial situation and asking you guys to help me financially. When we were dealing with Choose Cancer a couple of months ago, when we were paying thousands of dollars every month just to keep her alive and give her a chance, I asked you guys for prayers, but I could not imagine asking you for money. So I'm struggling to understand why Matt Miller was asking for handouts. To make matters worse, the GoFundMe campaign, it was abruptly shut down after 1 week. I wonder why. Uncle Casey, maybe he raised enough money. Maybe $51,000 was all he needed, and he didn't want to be greedy and ask for more. Yeah, I would be willing to believe that, but the campaign has a history of raising its requested donations amount once the amount is met. Initially, they started out asking for $10,000. Then they asked for $16,000. Once that was met, they decided to be ambitious and they doubled that amount to $30,000. Then they became overachievers and asked for $55,000. But before they could reach their new goal, the campaign was shut down. Maybe, just maybe, the campaign was shut down due to serious allegations of fraud, for lack of a better word, involving Matt Miller. Back in May, there was a Reddit thread accusing Matt Miller of scamming his audience. Now, in the vast majority of cases, I don't believe anything that I see on Reddit, most Reddit users are male, and the overwhelming majority are angry, bitter, lonely men. They're mad at the world for their never-ending virginity. They claim to be victims of an oppressive culture who doesn't like dorks. Most of what you see on Reddit, 100% garbage. Normally, I would not be willing to take accusations on Reddit seriously, but the state of Missouri, they are taking them seriously, and they have launched an investigation into Matt Miller. Apparently, he was the commissioner of 91 fantasy football leagues. For those that don't know, there are a lot of dudes who will pay to pretend to run an NFL team. They call themselves coaches or general managers, when the reality is, they're just sitting on their couch producing nothing but toxic ass gas. The founder of the league, he pretends to be a commissioner. He pretends that he's actually in charge of something, which in this case is Matt Miller. The entire thing is a fantasy, hence the name fantasy football. But the money is supposed to be real. Allegedly, Matt Miller was charging people to compete in his make-believe football league. And when people won, Matt Miller was refusing to pay him. They would send him a message on Reddit. Hey, Matt, it's me, Darth Vader 6'9". I just won the Super Bowl! Woohoo! Yes, yes, yes! This is the first time in my life I'm a winner! Can you please send me my money? Make the check payable to Darth, and you can send the check to 4050 Mother Lane. I live in the bathroom. Supposedly, Matt Miller would receive these messages and ignore them. Now, in his defense, Uncle KC would ignore messages from some doofus who refers to himself as Darth Vader, but Uncle KC ain't taking his money. I guess Matt Miller thought since his fantasy football league wasn't real, the winners aren't real either, so there was no need to pay him. Now, technically, he's right. The winners aren't real. How can you win something that is fantasy? But when you're taking people's real money and promising payouts to the winners, you owe it to them to make good on that promise. According to Front Office Sports, Matt Miller started communicating with people once this Reddit thread went viral. But there are also questions and alleged discrepancies about his 417 charitable foundation, whatever the hell that is. Luckily for Matt Miller and ESPN, this story broke yesterday afternoon, which was perfect timing for them, late on a Friday afternoon heading into a holiday weekend. But it doesn't change the fact it has been a brutal week for ESPN. Pretend NBA analyst compares an unknown WNBA player to a real legend. Stephen A. Smith having a meltdown about the white man. And Matt Miller scamming viewers for money. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys later.